a special meeting today. As you know, we have suggested that we not have the October 4th meeting since we're conducting most of the business today that's of importance. And so I just want to make sure we're aware of that. So at the end, we can make that known. But Mr. Chairman, I'll let you start.
First item, the approval of minutes from the September 6th meeting. Maybe a chance to review those. Questions or comments? Motion to approve.
Nope, and I'll just remind everybody to use their microphones if you don't mind. Just tap on that. If you got a red light, you're live. Thank you.
So are we good then? Do we have a quorum if?
You've got a quorum.
So I'll second. That's what I'm saying.
We'll have to move that to the next meeting.
Table that.
Table.
Table minutes to next meeting.
Just hold off on approving the minutes until
Okay. Next item, claims approval. So we've got one claim, Jacoby Toombs, for $2,590 for RDC on-call services. I think everybody's had a chance to review that. A motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Then there are a couple bond payments. Disbursement number one, $1,200,225 for the eastern parcel purchase. Number two, $29,564.90 to JTL. And then disbursement number three, $8,497.50. Any questions on those? Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor? Next item, old business.
There is no old business today, sir.
New business, resolution authorizing the execution of a lease between the City of Madison Redevelopment Commission and related matters for Crystal Beach.
Yes, on the phone today is Tom Pittman, who's our legal counsel with Barnes and Thornburg. If there are questions, Tom's right there.
Tom, we have you here with us?
You do indeed. Thank you.
And Gary Smith is here with Reedy Financial as well. The resolution is authorizing you to execute an agreement and the redevelopment authority. And that redevelopment authority was set up per state statute and approved by the city council at the last city council meeting. Those appointed to that by the mayor will be Ashley Pennington, David Ott, and Kevin Watkins. So those are the three members to the RDA that ultimately are under the RDC. Are there any questions for Tom or Gary as it relates to the resolution authorizing the lease related to the Crystal Beach pool?
You want Tom to give an overview of it?
Yeah,
what it
we
does?
can do
Tom,
that.
do you mind just giving an overview of what it does? Because there's multiple resolutions between each of the entities, council, RDA, and RDC.
Yes. The most direct way to have done this would have been for the Redevelopment Commission to simply do a bond issue and make the improvements to Crystal Beach Park. Unfortunately, there are various roadblocks to having the Redevelopment Commission do a direct bond issue like that. And so in order to get around those obstacles, financing can be converted from direct financing to what's called a lease financing, where this body, the Redevelopment Authority, gets created to act as a lessor of the project to the commission. The authority issues the bonds, makes the improvements, acquires Crystal Beach pool from the city, and leases it to the commission. The idea being that the commission is able to make debt service payments in the form of lease payments that it could not legally make in the form of direct bond payments. So you end up with this structure. If any of you have had involvement with school corporations, this is very similar to what schools do to finance their projects. They do these, in their case, they usually create a building corporation and then lease the project down. And they're trying to avoid the same debt limits and other restrictions that you're needing to avoid here. So just think of it as really in substance the same as a direct financing, except that you're paying lease payments instead of debt payments, and your lease payments are being used by the authority to repay their bonds. So that's kind of the legal structure and the explanation of why we're recommended that this be done as a lease. Now, when you do a lease financing, the commission, which will pay the lease rentals, is required to hold a public hearing on whether the commission wants to do the lease financing, and then to pass a resolution determining that the terms of a lease are fair. And so that's really what this resolution does. And so procedurally, we'll need you to have a public hearing at this time and call for any public input on the prudence of moving forward with this pool project. Okay?
So if somebody would, go ahead.
I ask you, if you don't mind, since we're all on.
So since we don't always do this, so if somebody would be just move to suspend the meeting and open the floor for a public hearing. If there's anybody here, which doesn't appear that there is, you can ask for public comments and then close that public hearing and go back to the meeting.
Yes.
So I'll ask for a movement to close the RDC meeting.
Suspend, yeah.
Suspend.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor? Any public comments?
Seeing no public comments, I think if you want to, you can move to close the public hearing and resume the regularly scheduled meeting.
We'll suspend the public.
Yes. If you could let the minutes have the minutes reflect that you thought that you opened it to a public hearing, sought public comments, and that there was none. So with that done, you are in a position then to consider passage of this resolution, finding that the lease payments are fair and taking related actions.
Yes, Commission, I would like to introduce Gary Smith just to briefly talk through the current financial situation as we see it, and before you do consider this resolution.
So
Yes.
we're gonna suspend the public hearing at this point and reopen the RDC.
Yes.
Motion to approve?
So motion.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.
Gary Smith, Reed Financial Group. As Tony mentioned, wanted to discuss just the financing a little bit because there is an underlying bond issue that the police payments are part of. At this time, we're contemplating a $5 million total par amount for the bonds. I believe in your documents in front of you, there's a $425,000 maximum annual lease rental payment. So as far as how is that to be funded, our goal and the options that we're sharing with the city at this time contemplate two things as a repayment source. One would be all available revenue pledge of the city. So any and all revenues that the city would make available for debt service payments could be made available for debt service payments. And then secondly, a property tax levy up into the point where it would be taxpayer neutral. So we're working through, assessments and levies as it goes through certification process to determine what that, neutral tax bill would, look like from a year-to-year basis. So again, those are the two payment sources, property tax levy to the extent that it's taxpayer neutral, and then any and all available revenues of the city of Madison.
So once a decision's made on that, then we'll flush through the financial statements. Is that?
Yeah, and I'll mention there's one other source. I mean, there is commitments from Redevelopment Commission or other sources of monies, because we are talking to other organizations about contributing to the annual debt service. All of that's gonna come into, form a pool of funds for the debt repayment. So Redevelopment Commission will be involved, City of Madison will be involved, we've approached Jefferson County and other entities about contributing. And this is a countywide project is the way we're looking at it, to replace Crystal Beach. And so we need countywide sources so that it's not just borne, on the backs of the city. And so far, we've had some very receptive conversations about that. I just want to make that
Yeah,
clarification.
great.
Because it's not just, a tax levy that keeps us, or a property tax levy that keeps us tax rate neutral. It's other sources that would also, potentially come in to be pledged toward the debt service.
And I would also remind you too, that as we've talked, this project is between $4 and $6 million. The mayor has pledged $1 million of the ARPA money towards the project on top of the bond issue, so that's how you're getting to that number.
We've introduced an amended ordinance tonight for the ARPA monies that we have. We have approximately $2 million left. And asked council to appropriate $1 million of that toward Crystal Beach, as well as there's more monies in there for park upgrades. I would just close by saying, the numbers are still fluid.
Yep,
We're still
for sure.
working through where we're landing, costs, we're going through the bidding process now for demolition. We haven't published, a set of specs and plans yet for bidding for the replacement of the pool. We're still looking at interest rates and the best financing structure and repayment sources. But a lot of this process is happening on a parallel track, because we have three entities that are involved in bringing it all together on a pretty compressed time frame. That's why we're doing the resolutions with all three entities this week, so we can tee it up, and then we'll come back once it's refined. Each board will have, the opportunity to have final say over what the actual financing plan and repayment sources are. Now we're setting the guardrails of what the plan is.
And again, to remind the commission, part of the reason why we're doing that is because our goal is to try to have water next summer. At some point during the summer, have water, and so we're moving fairly aggressively here to get that
Working
project.
hard not to have a second, summer without public swimming pool.
Any other comments? So at this point, I'll ask for a motion on resolution number 2022-8R.
I'll make that motion.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor? Thank you. Looks like the last item on the agenda, city matters, mayor updates.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, do we need Tom anymore? Tom? Do we need Tom?
I think we're good, Tom.
Tom, we're ready to,
Very good. Okay.
Thank
so
you.
much.
thank you very much.
Okay.
See. I'll ask Tony and Gary if we wanted to do the monthly financial review that's in the package. If there's anything you want to highlight about it. Again, some of these projects that I'm going to talk about on the mayor's update are injected frequently through our capital planning process that we've been going over for the last couple of years. And so some of the numbers continue to move around, not materially, but I think at the next meeting, we'll really have this nailed down so that we can confidently understand what projects we're committing to. There's a couple on here that we're probably suspending that will also, refresh capital. There's some new money coming in as part of the Super ATV agreement that we're anticipating when that deal closes, for example. So we'll know more in the next month or two. Didn't know if there was any questions. Open it up to the floor for the board if there's any questions with regard to the monthly financial update. Otherwise, I'll go into mayor's updates.
Yeah, I would ask Gary real quick, just to talk currently about the assessed valuation
Yep.
That you're seeing throughout the state, and where you seeing we are here in Jefferson County, and that impact that potentially has on future revenue.
Yeah,
So across the state, I think,
the number was floated today in the office, we're seeing about 15% assessment growth across the board, certified net assessed values for communities. The city of Madison grew just over 6% from pay 22 to pay 23. So with that, obviously, there's opportunities for funding. One thing I would say, as part of the TIF neutralization process, which is how this board derives their revenues on an annual basis, we take the assessments from the prior year, we neutralize out any growing factors that just have to do with trending values. We can't capture that. But any new construction, demolition, abatement roll-off, things of that sort, we're eligible to capture. That's TIF neutralization. Once the certified net assessed values are released, and the auditor's abstract comes out in the spring, we'll have a really good idea of what the projections are gonna look like for the Redevelopment Commission. And preliminarily, we're optimistic that we're gonna be seeing some increases in revenue, for pay 23 for the Redevelopment Commission. Roughly to the tune, I think we mentioned 150,000 thereabouts conservatively. It's hard to say that's an ironclad prediction now because so many things can change between certifications and when the the tax bills go out. But that's what we're looking at based on today.
Gary, does the max tax levy quotient that DLGF publishes, does it impact TIF districts too, in the same way as it does our city operating budgets?
In a roundabout way, kind of. So, Redevelopment Commission's really straightforward. It's simply just the assessed value that you're able to capture divided by 100 times your tax rate. That's it. Total taxing district rate. So city, county, school, library, all those rates captured, all the units. The reason I say, kind of, is because the 6-year non-farm factor for your maximum levy funds, basically that levy's allowed to grow by 5% this past year, which adjusts tax rates. So in a way, that levy growing adjusts tax rates, which has an impact on Redevelopment Commission to some
And
extent.
circuit breakers have a regular impact there too?
Circuit breakers treated almost exactly the same way.
Okay.
So, if you guys had a, 30% circuit breaker cap, for instance, circuit breaker credit, and you collected $1 million, we would factor that into your calculations. I think our projections for revenues is about 70 lines long on all the different things the auditor's abstract deducts and adds and things like that. Income taxes are a piece of that too. So we're tracking all those things on an annual basis.
And the reason I introduced those two things that I asked Gary to explain was the fact that, as we're projecting out our revenues, those could impact potentially tax revenues. And it becomes very complicated when you drill down and try to, look forward into your projections because of constitutional property tax caps and the quotients that DLGF uses for levies.
Yep. We're staying on top of all those.
It's a lot.
Yep.
Yes. DLGF is the Department of Local Government Finance. It's a state, branch of government that regulates essentially our budgets, and they do a lot of these calculations working with county assessors to give us projections of revenue that then we factor into our budgets, and they have to approve our annual budgets. School probably goes through the same similar process anyway.
Great, thank you, Gary.
Yeah, thank you.
If there's any questions?
Prosecutor's office, on their hand, unlimited budget. Any questions for Gary on financial review and taxes? I have a few comments. I would like to just talk about, or I'll ask Tony to, because I don't want to hog the roadshow here, talk about the timetable that we've compiled with regard to the Crystal Beach project. It's one of probably a half a dozen of big projects we're working on right now across the city enterprise, but it's one of the most important ones to our community.
Yeah, as the mayor mentioned, we've got a pretty aggressive schedule here to get the financing put into place to be able to award construction here later this year. As you know, the Common Council did approve, in a little bit of a hurried fashion. They did suspend third reading and voted that night, so we were able to gain some time. Today, you've approved, the Redevelopment Commission approved the lease payment. The Redevelopment Authority will be meeting this Thursday to put into motion the bond issue associated with that lease payment and to accept the property. And they will be adopting that resolution on Thursday. And then tonight, the Common Council will be adopting a resolution approving the lease and the transfer of the property to the RDA. So that'll all be happening here tonight at the City Council. There will be some lease publishing requirements here later next week. And then ultimately, our goal is to close and sell bonds before December 1st. So the next 60 days is really about the bond process itself and getting those all put together and out to market. We've been through that before here in the spring, so that'll allow us to hopefully sell bonds before December 1st. Our project, we did take bids this week, yesterday, for the demolition. Those are currently being reviewed by the architect for those. We hope that that process will happen here in the month of October and early November. Bids for the pool will be back in mid-November for the installation of the pool, and hopefully authorize that to proceed in December, and then with construction for approximately 6 to 7 months thereafter. So we can all hope for a dry winter. That would be very helpful. I hope the Farmer's Almanac is not correct. So I saw that prediction yesterday, I think, in some report. So we would hope for a dry winter here, so we can get the pool built as fast as possible. But that's sort of an overview of the process.
Any questions on timetable before I go into just a couple of other notes? Well, in addition to Crystal Beach, I want to highlight a few other projects that we're spending a lot of time on, and actually the last couple of years of planning, is bringing to fruition bidding and start of construction of some of these things. We've been working for the past 14 or 15 months on the Ready Grant project. David and Dr. Brown, that stands for the Regional Economic Accelerated Development Initiative that State Assembly passed in the 2021 year. That authorized $500 million of economic development money that was then essentially on a competitive basis allocated across the state to regional development authorities, of which Jefferson County is one of 5 counties in the Southern Indiana Regional Development Authority. All done on a competitive basis. It resulted in that RDA receiving $50 million to award. City of Madison submitted 2 plans, a Destination Madison as well as a workforce development plan. About 4 or 5 of our Destination Madison plans were selected in the final plan that was submitted to the state. We've already gone through now the bidding for 2 of those, and those are our gateway enhancements and the Mulberry Street Arts Corridor. Redevelopment Commission's been instrumental in all of this along the way for either property acquisition or match money. We did receive bids, and Board of Public Works at their meeting yesterday approved a $1.5 million low bid to Schutte Contracting out of Seymour. Greensburg. For the Mulberry Street Arts Corridor project and our Gateway project. So it's great, those are now going to be coming out of the ground. Our Redevelopment Commission's also been important played an important role in a lot of planning. As you know, we did a parking plan earlier this year because we wanted to really take inventory of what our parking stalls are that we have in the Central Business District, as well as what times, and we had peak usage. So that parking plan is proved, I think, that we don't need to build a parking garage. So in one respect, that $50,000 investment's saving us several millions of dollars because we're not going to be building a parking garage. But it also did reveal the fact that we've got to do a better job of informing visitors where our parking is, because we have some of our largest parking lots being very underutilized. So we're doing wayfinding now. That'll be something you'll see pop up across the community, is wayfinding to better direct visitors to where parking is so that it can be better managed. The other thing that we did was the Sidewalk Asset Management Plan, where we looked at all the sidewalks in downtown Madison and applied a rating to them, similar to what we do with our streets. 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. Conclusion there was about half of our 40 miles worth of sidewalks were not ADA compliant, and several miles were rated very poor to poor.
So we have bids out now for approximately $200,000 investment in repair and replacement of our worst-rated sidewalks downtown. That project will probably be awarded in, I think, late October?
That'd be awarded,
Early October. So over the course of late fall, we'll be working on new sidewalks. Sunrise Crossing, we've got two bids that went out there. One is for the lift station that's being constructed as part of that new development for retail and housing. But the other thing that you just saw in the funding here and you approved was the acquisition of the east parcel, which we've already entered into an agreement to sell that eastern parcel to Winterwood for the multifamily development. And we also approved sharing in the cost of the creation of stormwater detention basin that is going to have material downstream benefit for the Crooked Creek watershed, which we've been working on with the Corps of Engineers for the past year. And I think Mike was here a week or so ago and also talked at Board of Public Works where we approved the construction and maintenance plan for the stormwater detention basin, which is under construction now. Drive by Sunrise Crossing, and I think you'll be impressed with the amount of work that's being done up there in such a quick time. But we also received approval from the state for the easements that we needed for the lift station, and now that part of that project is out to bid. And finally, I want to mention the water project. We are finalizing all of our design elements to that, and while Redevelopment Commission isn't directly involved in the water project, it certainly will be impacting everything that we do because it's the first major capital investment in our water infrastructure in 20 years. And that'll be going out to bid in October. We'll be closing on the financing with the Indiana Finance Authority by early December, and that's a $13 million project. If that isn't enough stuff to talk about, there's always a grocery store out there that we work on every single day. And when we get out of this call, we have a meeting, and then we have another call with our potential grocery store operator that we've had very productive conversations with for about 6 months.
And I would also say that the bids, we have bids out for the Michigan road improvements associated with Sunrise Crossing District too. So the traffic light and those things, those numbers are out as well. So there's a lot going on here, and we're very happy to get those numbers back and get people started.
I'll pause there, answer any questions about the variety of projects. And David and Dr. Brown, you could look at our financial overview, and as you go through that, there'll be a name and a dollar amount attached with various different initiatives that we have. And you'll see what critical role the Redevelopment Commission has been playing in everything we're doing across the city that's really making advancements on infrastructure, housing, retail, quality of life initiatives, and economic development. It's pretty fantastic.
And I would say to the two new members, we do a quarterly update. First one was done in August. We'll make sure you have that report. It sort of outlines the projects the RDC's involved with in funding and sort of an update. Again, some of these projects are moving pretty quickly, so the data might change between one quarter and another, but the basic overall project scope, size, scale, what the project hopes to accomplish is all the same, but we'll give you those strategic updates again here towards the end of the year.
I did have one other thing that I want to mention too. Yesterday at Board of Public Works, we approved the third quarter's allocation of PACE grants, which between the city and the Redevelopment Commission, we have made a major effort in preservation across the entire city, not just downtown in the historic district, but also targeted revitalization areas, but also the Hilltop too. Yesterday, we approved $144,000 in third quarter grants for about a dozen projects that is going to leverage that investment up with an additional approximately $700,000 in new private investment. And so one way to look at this is that the 144 that we approved at Board of Public Works yesterday is creating $815,000 of new investment
And in this particular round, they were all downtown properties being preserved, 4 of which were in our targeted revitalization areas, and 4 were designated as dilapidated structures. This program is making what I would consider no pun intended, historic difference in our preservation efforts across the community.
Any other comments? So next meeting's, we're gonna go ahead and hold off on the meeting October 4th. Next meeting will be November 1st.
Mr. Chair, I may just point out that we may have to, depending on how this all evolves, we may have to just convene again in October. Not sure what the date is. It's a bit fluid, but if we do, we'll certainly give you plenty of advance notice. Thank you.
And again, thank you for your scheduling this meeting and this week for the special session. I appreciate that.
Before we close, any questions or comments from our 2 new members?
No, appreciate the information and looking forward to serving.
Dr. Brown, all good?
Yeah, no, we're engaged in a similar process, selling some bonds in the district, and I know rate increases are expected around November 1st, so we've kind of tried to back things up and do some quick bonds to get them out before the rate increases. So I appreciate your initiative to get this done quickly so that you can stay on the better end of those rates, most likely.
We have several projects that are large multi-million-dollar projects that are being financed by bonds, and the rates have certainly moved since we started really, putting the plans together a year ago.
Nothing further, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Thanks, everyone.